Extra time on Fox's Hub, Facebook and YouTube. Welcome along. My name's Lewis Mason, taking care of things for Dan Bates this week, and delighted to say I've got company with me in the form of Gerry, Taggart, Iwan Roberts and Tony Cottee. Gentlemen, good evening. Before we go any further though, I see that TC, you're looking nice for this evening, you know, lovely polo shirt. Gerry, shirt, jeans. Iwan Roberts, he's got the shorts on. He's loving the sunshine.
Should not have let him in the building.
You can only see the top half. I've told you before, boys.
Unbelievable.
Should not have let him in the building.
I thought you were going to have a go at me for having a white t-shirt on there.
I'll tell you what, I nearly got my boots out and said, go and give Emma clean for his son, will you?
Good to see you, gents. We've got a great show as always. We've got all the fun and games of Extra Time and, of course, all the discussion looking back at the weekend. TC, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. Yeah, had a decent weekend. All right, boys, how we doing? Took in a couple of games. Had a game of, for once, Tags, I actually played well at golf as well over the weekend. It does make a change, as you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's all about time and TC for next week, isn't it? So
exactly, yeah, building up to the big one next Monday, mate?
Absolutely.
Okay, more on that probably on next week's show or the week after if it's next Monday. Let's go back to the weekend then. Of course, for Leicester City, the 100% start, the victorious start to the season is over. But with any season, you're going to get that. You've got to have the downs with the ups, Tags.
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to say it was inevitable, but, you know, I think if you take into consideration the start that Leicester have had, and this question's been asked before, you know, did you expect Leicester to come out and win the first 4 games in the league? And everybody would probably have said, well, probably not. So for them to achieve that, I mean, you know, it's a bit of a milestone. First time in their history they've won 4 games on the bounce. So that's a bit of a milestone there. Yes, they got beat on Saturday. But I think for the most part, Leicester were still a better team in the game. You know, they were the team driving forward, especially in the second half. You know, they controlled the game. And you can talk about, we should have done this a bit better, should have done that a bit better. And that's all correct and true and fine. But, you know, every now and again, you're going to have a little blip. And fair play to Hull, they're no mugs. They're a decent side and they've got some good players defensively and attackingly. And that was the difference, was what happened in both boxes. There was a bit of luck with a goal, but I'm a big believer in, and Tony and Ewan will back me up on this, if you don't shoot, you don't score. So you make your own luck in those situations. So fair play to Taggart for having that shot and it going in off the backside of Vestergaard. But they'll be back and they'll be there to fight another day.
Yeah, we will look at some of the fixtures from the weekend a bit later, but we did speak off air, Ewan, about the fact that actually the Championship, you never know what's going to happen. You can't take anything for granted. And yes, Leicester had an absolutely rampant start to the season, but you really don't know what type of games around the corner. You don't know how teams are going to turn up.
I mean, I've said it for so many years now, Lewis, that it is the most unpredictable league. And I think the weekend typifies it. Before Saturday, 2 of my former teams sitting first and second, I was proper chuffed. Norwich went to Rotherham in the game they probably expected to win after the start that they've had. Hull coming to the King Power, as Tag said, no mugs. I think Liam Rossini's done a fantastic job there. Took over, when they were bang in trouble last season and guided them to 15th. They went to Carrow Road on the opening day, lost 1-0, a 96-minute winner from Adaptability. Since then, they've won 7 points from their next 3 games, so it was never going to be easy. They've made some good signings. I like the boy Delap, who scored the winner. Scott Twine, who they've got on loan from Burnley, is a good player. Yeah. They're a good side. And I remember I was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I would have taken 4 points from Rotherham and Hull. Whichever way they came, I didn't mind. And it was inevitable that Leicester were going to lose a game sooner or later. It stops people going on about the 100% record now. Yeah, it's a hiccup, it's a blip. You look at the statistics: 64% possession, 21 shots. But I think this is the most worrying one for me. Just one of those shots on target. Had 8 corners to Hull's 3. Plenty of opportunities, but have to be more clinical in that final third.
Well, that's exactly what Enzo Maresca said after the game. He said, we need to be more clinical. We need to be taking those chances. But I guess with Liam Delap, like you said, Gerry, have that shot. At least Leicester City are creating those chances, having those chances. Tony, when you saw that Leicester had lost a game, was it a shock because of their brilliant start? Or were you thinking, actually, again, the Championship, you don't really know what you're going to get at sometimes?
Actually blame myself because we done our predictions, the boys. We done our predictions at the start of the season. I tipped Hull to go down, so that tells you what I know about Championship football at the moment, doesn't it? I mean, they've obviously turned up and put in a really good performance. The other thing as well, you're getting old when the manager of Hull you played with his dad. Now I played front with Leroy Rossignol, so that's how old I am. Liam obviously is doing a fantastic job. I'm really pleased, by the way, to see him get that job. Having said all that, I was pretty much like you, and you look at the result, and of course it's a disappointing result. But Tags has touched on the 4 wins on the trot, which is quite right to do so. Ewan's also touched on what I picked up on, which is if you're having 21 shots and only 1 on target, I know really what you should be doing. I know some of the boys disappear, etc., and you've also got to get your resting in the international break. But surely, getting everyone in a more positive mood, trying to shoot a little bit more, because I think I'm all in favour of possession football. I'm all in favour of keeping the ball. It's very, very important in the modern day. We know that. But there does come a time where you have to have that end product, and you have to have the end product on target. We've already mentioned Delap's goal. Yeah, of course it was deflected. But if you don't have that effort, it doesn't go in. Obviously, Leicester hit the post, which was unlucky. But, I think just a little bit of work in training, and just sometimes you've got to get in the players' minds, because it's a new manager coming, it's a new style, it's a new way of playing, new formations at times, and I understand all that, but the fundamentals of football will never change. You have to score goals, and to score goals, as Tags has already said, you have to have shots.
Yeah, of course, Enzo Maresca's brought in a new system which the players are learning. He said it will take time. A couple of weeks ago, he said, I'm only seeing 20 to 30% of what I'm expecting the end product to be, but they are having those chances. Dave's been in touch on Facebook and says a bit of target practice is required. The strikers among us today, what do you do when you have a game like that? You have so many shots. Is it a case of, some days they're just not going for you, or is there that kind of tactical thing within yourself as someone trying to finish?
I mean, you've got different part of the plays that you work on the training pitch to get things in people's minds. As a 6'3" centre forward, I obviously thrived on crosses. 9 times out of 10, I'd be on the back post, hoping that ball was going to be lifted in. I mean, Jamie Vardy had a really good chance towards the end, didn't he? With, I think, was it Winks that put that great swinging left-footed ball in? And when I first saw it, I thought, it's goal. And how it missed the post, goodness knows. But got to be more clinical. I mean, had you said to me after 5 games in the Championship that Iheanacho and Jamie Vardy wouldn't have scored, I'd have been carting you away and getting you locked up. You've just got to keep going into areas. You've just got to keep going into the same areas. Don't be afraid to miss, because I think that's the problem. If the minute you don't go into the area that the ball you expect the ball to come to, that's when it will come into. I mean, TC will know better than me. I mean, scored hundreds of goals. They've just got to keep at it. Obviously, the signing of Tom Cannon will help. Saw quite a bit of him last season when he was on loan at Preston. Had a successful time there, 8 goals in 20 appearances. Offers something different. He's quite a big, strong lad. He's a good runner. Scores with his left foot and his right. So, competition for places, and with signing in the centre forward, that might drag a little bit more from the 2 boys that I mentioned.
Yeah, Cottee and Nacho had a good chance in the first half. He kind of span on it, didn't he? And slammed it towards the goal. Asked for a penalty because I suppose anything that's anywhere near somebody's arm, the appeal can be had, whether it was penalty or not, immaterial at this point. But you feel like a goal, if that goes in, knowing the player Cottee Nacho is and has been over the years, he's probably going to score a hatful in that same game, because that confidence does breed with a player like Nacho.
Yeah, I think, he's done brilliant, by the way, Cottee. The way, he spun on it and got the shot away. And as you say, there was... I couldn't see. I was doing the cold comms, but I couldn't see on the replay whether or not it hit the hand. I don't know if that was my eyesight or the camera angles just aren't as good.
Probably... In the Premier League, they check it and they give it.
Yeah, so
that's the thing. Because you're in the Championship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's no check available, is there? And then he also had that other chance that was saved, not off the line, but from about 5 yards out, that was eventually given offside for him. So yeah, listen, there was Dewsbury Hall as well had a lot of shots. We've seen him bag a couple on the first day. On Saturday, for whatever reason, the shots that he was having from the edge of the box were just going wide, so it was collectively, it just didn't happen for Leicester. But I suppose with Cottee, with his conversion rate being that good, with the amount of chances he has, then I suppose you are kind of fancying him in those kind of areas at that stage in the game, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason.
It was interesting you mentioned about Hull, Tony, and the prediction you had pre-season, because actually just seeing a few of the comments from their supporters over the last couple of days, they were pretty much in the same boat as you were at the start of the season, because they say they've been absolutely kind of overwhelmed with the way they have started. So Liam Rosenior, he's kind of building quite a solid unit by the looks of it from what we saw on Saturday.
Yeah, and you can never really judge, I don't think, particularly as we've already touched on, the Championship is so unpredictable. I mean, it wasn't that I wanted Hull to go down. It was just that I was sort of fishing around at the bottom of the table, in what would be, in my mind, at the bottom of the table, struggling to really look at too many teams. I think I named Rotherham as another team. But it's such a competitive division this year. If you looked at the 3 teams that come up, they was always going to be sort of effective. I know Sheffield Wednesday having a brilliant start, but they were a big club, big fans, etc. Hard to win at Hillsborough. And then you looked at the 3 that were coming down, including Leicester. You're thinking, wow, this is going to be a really, really tough league. So, Liam's done great to get Hull in the position they're in. Just want to pop back to what we were just talking about, Lewis. They were just Cottee, because, I think from my point of view, looking at him, I don't think he's played that bad this year. In fact, if anything, he's actually led the line really well from what I've seen. And he's been a bit unlucky. Some of the chances, he's been sort of snatching a little bit. He's just not had that little bit of luck. And, I mentioned the stats, and Ewan did as well, with the 21 shots. As a team, in a way, it's not really a concern, because you are creative. If you're having the shots, it's the quality of the shots. As an ex-centre forward, I used to worry more if I wasn't having the shots. I didn't mind about missing, because that's all part of the game. And, not... even Haaland doesn't score with every shot. You're going to miss chances. But it's just if you're not getting in those, as Ewan touched on, not getting in those positions, or you're not getting those shots in, that's when it's a bit of a worry. But I think Cottee will come good. I think there's been many times in his Leicester career where he's gone on runs of form, where he'll get sort of 4, 5, 6 games on the trot where he'll score. So I think it's only a question of time. The new signing will obviously just spice everything up a little bit from everyone's point of view. Jamie Vardy's long overdue a goal. So I think the goals will come. But great start to the season for Hull. But let's not forget, Leicester have had a really good start as well. Because we was all going, what we expecting. They've just got relegated. How they're going to be, how they're going to play, etc. New manager. There were so many unknowns. And I think to be in the position that Leicester are in at the moment, I think they do deserve a lot of praise for that.
I totally agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. If someone had offered you 6 wins out of 6 in August, a plum tie at Liverpool in the next round of the EFL Cup, 12 points from the first 5 games going into the first international break. Yeah, you're disappointed with losing to Hull, especially at home. With everything that happened in the summer with the players that left, let's not forget there's 9 new players. I think 9 new players that have come into the football club. I think for Leicester to be where they are now, going into this first international break, with things to work on, which we've spoken about, I think it's a terrific start.
Craig's been in touch, actually mimicking the words that Tony was talking about, saying about he saw Saturday a little bit with some of the forward play snatching at some of the shots and chances. So interesting. Thanks for getting in touch, Craig. Also, Ray's made a very good point that we will come back to and discuss after our first round of this week's Lurdle. Now, this is a game, if you've not joined us on Extra Time before, where we have a famous goal from Leicester City history being commentated, and we'll play it to you in several parts throughout the show. And what you've got to guess is what was the goal? Who scored it? Who was it against? When did it happen? That's what we are looking for. So, part 1 of Lurdle sounds like this.
As Perez picks it up by the corner flag after a fine long pass.
Oh, he's cut it short.
Part 1 of Lurdle cut short. Let's run that one more time.
As Perez picks it up by the corner flag after a fine long pass.
Okay.
There's not a lot there to work with, is there?
There's no clue apart from the obvious.
Corner flag, yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't call Iosy Paris a corner flag.
So we will come back to part 2. Jot the notes down, but of course, yeah, you'll hear a little bit more of that commentary as we go through the show. And as I say, please do keep those comments coming, because this is Extra Time on Fox's Hub, Facebook and YouTube. We can see your comments, and of course, we'll get through to as many of them as possible. Let's go back to Ray's, who was looking at Saturday's game, and he said one thing he's not seeing with the team this season is more running in behind. Is that something that you've picked up on, Ewan, in the first couple of games? And is that more patient build-up play? We know Enzo Maresca likes to play that possession football, and it's not going to be necessarily the long through ball.
Well, it is all about keeping the ball. It is all about possession-based football. Horses for courses. There'll be times, and I think it's about individuals making decisions at the right time. If you can see spaces and gaps behind the back 4 or the back 5, say if you're playing against a back 5 with their wing backs pushed up, the spaces are sort of down both wings. If they're there and you have got pace in wide areas and up front, and Leicester have, then sometimes you have to sort of mix it up a little bit. How many times have we seen, is Edison the Man City keeper? Absolutely ping one 50, 60 yards over the back 4. And picking a Mahrez or a Foden or a De Bruyne or a Haaland out. I think sometimes it's not a bad thing. Sometimes you need to plant that seed of doubt into a team, thinking, well, we're not going to play everything in front of you. Sometimes we will put a quality pass, not a long ball, a quality pass in behind the back 4. And then things open up, you get more space in midfield. So, yeah, I think it's a good point. I really do. I don't think there's anything wrong with not being direct, that's the wrong word, because I think those days have gone. But yeah, a good long quality pass that sort of stretches the defence.
We'll come on to Abdul Fattah, who of course made a debut at the weekend, but with the likes of him, Mavididi, of course, showing that flair from the wide point. Does that give a little bit more impetus to what is being said here by Ray about being able to be kind of those through balls, that you have that pace that could work some danger with?
Yeah, I think what Ray's probably talking about is playing your centre forward in over the top nice and early. But I think there is, the players are making runs, but they're making inside channel runs. And it's mainly coming from either the attacking midfielders or the wide players themselves. And so it's, I suppose you could say that it's a patient build-up, and then where they're trying to stretch the back lines is stretch them in the wide areas, which then creates the space through the middle to then get your centre forwards in. But, that is still an option in regards to what Ewan was saying about hitting an early long pass. But I think because you've got the pace of Mavididi on one side, or McAteer on the other, or Wanya Marcel, and now Fatawu, who's come in, then they're looking for those inside channel runs to stretch the back line and drag people out of position to then get your other attacking midfielders into the box alongside your centre forward. So it's a different way of making of stretching the back lines. It's just, it's just not as predictable, or so to speak, or it's not meant to be as predictable as just hitting the ball over the top.
Well, it is really interesting hearing all the comments coming through, so do keep them coming. We've got one from Glenn that we'll come back to very shortly. But all of this, Tony, it kind of comes back to the fact that this is a very new Leicester City squad, new arrivals in the last week. So it does take time. And I'm sure the way Enzo Maresca is getting the team playing, it's going to take a bit of time to get that absolutely free-flowing. When you think back to your playing days and there were new ideas coming through, how did you find it taking that new information on board and being able to implement it?
Well, I think you have to be adaptable as a footballer, and I can go back many years during the war, obviously. When I played up front with Frank McAvenny back in the mid '80s, and we had a wonderful season back in 1986. And the following season, the opposition defences, instead of playing a back four, quite a few of them decided to play a back five, as in 3 centre halves. At which point they went 2 centre halves marking me and Frank almost man for man with like a spare centre half or a sweeper tucked in behind. And we had to adapt to that. And I think, it's a really good point. Was it Ray who made the point? It's a really good point that going forward, Leicester have got to be adaptable, because as the game pattern went, I didn't see the game live, Lewis, so it's Tags is the one to talk about this. But if the opposition team get an early goal, which it was 15 minutes into the game, that plays into their hands perfectly, because they can then shut up shop, they can drop off, they can defend deep. You can have a back four and a midfield five, leave someone up on their own to try and hit them on the counter attack, knowing full well that you're a goal up. And I think where Leicester have got to work things out going forward. And I'm not saying it's a massive problem at the moment, because it's not. But when it's a very, very tight defence, you've got to have other options, because if you just keep passing the ball in front of the opposition, then you're not going to create those chances that we've been moaning about that we're lacking in terms of shots on target. So you've got to have the variation. But Leicester haven't got a Iwan Roberts at the moment where you're going to get the ball in the box, or a Steve Wolf from a corner type of thing. You've got to play to your strengths, and it's a work in progress. And football has changed. I accept that. But I still think there is room for a little bit of variation just to help Leicester. When the defence is tight and there's 9-10 men behind the ball, you've got to be able to open it up. And when it does go out wide to the very talented wide players, they shouldn't be afraid to every now and again put a cross in, because that's going to unnerve defences as well.
I think the issue for the players at the minute is this is a total departure from what they're used to. You've got a right back. You've got a right back playing in midfield, right, for a start, and he's expected to get on the ball from the very beginning and make Leicester tick, which obviously we know we can do that. And the runs that the players are making are completely different to the runs that they would normally make, whether they're playing in midfield or out wide, and even the centre forwards, because as Ray said, he's not seen a ball over the top for a Jamie Vardy or in the natural, because they're being asked to do. So this takes a bit more time than a new manager coming in and playing, instead of playing a 4-4-2, he's playing a 4-3-3. Okay? That's just changing people around the pitch. This is a totally different way of actually passing the ball on the pitch. And I think that will take a little bit longer. But when it becomes how Enzo wants it, if he's saying 25 to 30%, then you're going to see some fireworks. That's what I totally believe.
Well, that's the thing. You've got to say, actually, when we've seen it absolutely flowing, it looks lovely.
I keep going back, and I'm not going to be disrespectful to Burton in the cup, but that first half was outstanding. The way the lads just popped it about 1 and 2 touch. The first goal was an outstanding move, and it's still early days in this new process. I keep using the word process because that's the fashionable word these days. Am I right in thinking, Tags, that not too many, was it one less pre-season game as well, which gave Enzo less time to get his philosophy and his ideas over? With 5 games into a new season, Leicester will get better. If you look at all 5 games, they've been tight. The four that Leicester won have been by 1 goal, scored late goals. Apart from Huddersfield, where, it was 1-0, but it was more comfortable than the scoreline would suggest. I think, considering we're just 5 league games into the new season, I think we have to be delighted with the start that the club's made, because with the quality that's been brought in, added to what was already here, I think that we have to be really pleased.
Yeah, I promised I'll come to Glenn's point, so let's put this to you boys, that corners, set pieces, are something we've spoken about in years gone by, more from a defensive point of view. But Glenn's thinking about the attacking point of view and saying they had 8 corners on Saturday and not one of them really caused any problems for Hull. Is that something you noticed, Gerry?
Yeah. You obviously got Vestergaard in the side, 6'5", is he? 6'6". Big man. Didn't really call. Well, again, was that the quality from those corners? Were they not good enough, or were they just trying to try something different from the set pieces? Again, we can only surmise. But yeah, listen, and obviously you've got Fass up there who can be aggressive in there. So yeah, you've got 2 options there straight away. Obviously after that, apart from Wilfred and Didi, then the height situation sort of diminishes quite rapidly. But I'm saying that, you've got Callum Doyle as well. But yeah, listen, when you've got 4 6-foot-plus players in your team, you want to at least be making the opposition fight for second balls. So that means winning it, even if it's not going on target, then keep it in the danger area and try and get the rest of the team fighting for those knockdown 50-50s, and maybe something comes from them. But at the minute, as you say, it's not quite happening.
I was at Portman Road on Saturday. I was going to say, one of the best games I've seen this season. I've seen 5 games, but Ipswich are not a big side. I think the 2 centre halves are 6'1", 6'2" at a push, but they're not a big side. They scored 2 goals from corners. The imagination, and obviously I think they've got a set piece coach, and you can just see it, just different little movements, opening a space up for someone to come onto it. I mean, it was fantastic. You don't have to always put that big long ball in, hoping for one of your big centre halves or your big centre forward to come. I think, especially nowadays, I think you have to be a little bit more imaginative, if that's the right word, from set pieces. But they were very, very good.
But at the end of the day, it's all about the service.
Yes,
it's all about
get that
the
ball
set piece taker. If he doesn't put it where he's supposed to, then all this movement and all this running around counts for nothing.
Yeah. You've also got to beat the first man as well, Tags. I mean, I was watching Arsenal yesterday, and Martinelli must have had 3 corners that didn't even get above the first man, and it must have drove you mad if you make the effort to run up on the halfway line and whoever's taking the corner just hits the first man. You've got to give those defenders. You mentioned this. There's 2 or 3 big centre halves that Leicester have got. You've got to get the ball over the first man, or you've got to get enough flight on the ball to let them have a run at it, because there's nothing more frustrating. And I think the fans grown as well. And of course, if you do it a couple of times, then it then starts to become a bit of a theme, which is what I think they're talking about. Defensively, I think that we've certainly seen an improvement over the last year or so in terms of defending corners. But I think attacking corners, you must always give the centre halves or the centre forward, whoever it might be, you've got to give them the chance to actually try and win the header, get it over that first man, or alternatively, get someone at that near post who is going to flick it on, because that can still be a dangerous corner as well. There's lots of variations, as Ewan's touched on, but you just got to make sure you get the quality in. Whoever's taking the corners has to get the quality into the box.
I bet some corner takers got a right mouthful, didn't they, Tags?
It's a cardinal sin. If the corner taker does not beat the man at the near post, then you deserve what's coming next.
See, me and CC are walking out of the box. Tags has got to sprint back towards the halfway line.
80 yards. Well, sprint. Yeah. I'm being kind to myself there. Well, I've got to trundle.
You got to get there.
80 yards back. When they hit us on the break, because the guy at the near post heads it out to one of their players on the edge of the box, and then you're sprinting back as fast as you can, trying to defend, so you can see what's coming like out there as you're running back. So yeah, cardinal sin if you don't beat the first man.
Who was the biggest culprit?
To be fair, we weren't too bad. We had 2 quality corner takers and Steve Cottee and Muzzy, is it? So it wasn't too often they didn't do that. But in other teams that I played for, then, you know, there was a few ear bashings.
Tags keeping still, not heard that before. Let's go on to part 2 of Lurdle. This is your game, if you are just joining us, where we describe a classic Leicester City goal to you with the commentary from the time, and you have to work out which goal it is. The clip's going to get a little bit longer this time, and it sounds like this.
As Perez picks it up by the corner flag after a fine long pass, and he exchanges balls with Ricardo. Now it's back with Yuri Tielemans, helps it on to Wilfred and Ndidi.
Okay.
Tags is really good at this.
I know.
That's a hard one.
I'm stuck.
Yeah.
I think he's drawn a football pitch so far on his pad, so that's good. It definitely happened on a football pitch, Tags. Correct.
I don't think it really matters, you know, about the players who are on the pitch at the moment, apart from maybe one who Chris Parrott has just mentioned.
I was about to say, I'm very impressed that straight away the commentator's name's been taken, putting him in a bit.
Because it sort of gives you a guide of whether it's a home game or an away game, depending on.
Oh, he knows his rota. That's it. Yeah. Tags knows the rota. Very, very good. All right, we'll have part 3 on the way very soon. But of course, Saturday did see a new signing make their debut. Abdul Fattah, very much impressing, very nearly drew the game level. What were your impressions, Tags?
Well, again, you know, I think criticisms from the team on Saturday, that's fair enough. I say I've already still thought they were the better team. They just couldn't quite break Hull down. For me, what Leicester needed in that final third was to quicken the game up more often, and that's what Fattah, when he came on, he just quickened the game up. I mean, he's great pace off the mark. He can go either way, left or he can go down the line inside. Predominantly came in left side, but he was shimmying to go down the line, moving his body, bang, he's off the mark. And after that, he's direct, he's positive, he's got a picture in his mind of what he wants to do. A few times it came off, once or twice it didn't come off. That's useful enthusiasm and experience, whatever you want to call it. But what he did was give everybody a lift, a little bit of, he injected a little bit of tempo and a little bit of pace into the game, which was needed.
Yeah, and it certainly looks like he has got that pace to burn, which will be very much something that Enzo Maresca will be looking to use. Someone else who came in on deadline day, Tom Cannon from Everton. Someone you've seen a bit of?
Yeah, I saw quite a lot of him last year at Preston. Scored in both games that I went to. Scored against Cardiff at Deepdale. Scored against Swansea down at the Swansea.Cot Stadium. I think he's about 6 foot. Good upper body strength. You know, he can compete physically with a centre half. Good movement. A little bit of pace about him, likes that ball threaded through, which he can get onto. And there's 8 goals in 20 league appearances, would suggest he's got that clinical edge to his game as well. And I'm surprised, really, that Everton have let him go, considering the tough time they're having in front of the goal. You know, no Calvert-Lewin. Not even had to give him an opportunity, I think, but it has to be for Leicester's game. I think it's a good signing.
Tony, when you think about the Leicester summer transfer window, of course, it was time to freshen things up. That was a known fact from the start, after coming down from the Premier League into the Championship with a clear aim of bouncing straight back. How do you sum up those arrivals who have been here?
Yeah, still early days, Lewis, isn't it? I think, you know, I've only really seen the first game live, you know, so it's always hard for me to make judgments on players. You know, I think a lot of the time you watch a player in that first game, you get really excited. It was the lad last year at Aston Villa, had a wonderful debut, and that was it. Tete, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, and a wonderful debut in that. But then he never really sort of kicked on and developed his game, and no consistency. So I'm always wary of making sort of hasty judgments on players and that. But in terms of Fattah, I mean, he did look dangerous when he came on. It was great skill what he did. He looks like he's got that little bit of shimmy about him and pace. It was a wonderful effort. So unlucky not to score. But I do feel for the wide players. I've said this before. You know, it's, you know, centre forwards are obviously reliant on service, but I think the wide players are as well. And it comes back to what we were saying about the style of play, you know, a bit earlier on the show. And you've got to give them that service. And you've got to make sure they get the ball. You need help, whether that's a fullback or someone inside. And sometimes you've got to leave him alone. Just let him take the fullback on. And if you've got that pace and that trickery and that, it can become a real weapon for the club. So I'll be interested to see how Fatawu does. But Lewis, it takes time with the new signing. We're 6-7 games into the new season. Not all of them have played. Not all of them have played every game. Harry Winks has been Harry Winks. He's exactly what I would have expected him to be. Consistent. Just does the simple things really well, and the type of player you need in your team to progress and get promoted back to the Premier League. So bit early to make the judgments, but I think the signs are good, and obviously look forward to seeing Cottee back in action as well.
Well, of course, TC talks about service. Somewhere that there was plenty of service was at the Stadium of Light on Saturday. Sunderland 5, Southampton 0. We talked about the Championship being a very unpredictable league. I think we're going to maybe see that on our prediction league very, very soon, because I don't think anyone would have called that one. What an afternoon for Sunderland and for Southampton, obviously Leicester's next opponents. An absolute humbling.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, the lads have already mentioned it. I remember the season after we got relegated and we went straight back up. We went to Ipswich, we went to Portman Road and got beat 6. And then we went on a run straight after that. So, and this was like second or third game of the season. We got battered down at Portman Road. So I'm not saying it isn't a surprise. It is a bit of a surprise, but this is what can happen if you're not on the money in the Championship. Sunderland, obviously a good side anyway. Got some good players. Tony Mowbray's been around for time immemorial, knows the Championship better than most, if not all, in regards to what's around in it, how to manage his teams around that, coaching. So yeah, it's probably a bit of a wake-up call for Southampton. And whether or not the travelling, affected them from Southampton to Sunderland, who knows? Everyone's got an excuse these days.
Yeah, quite an incredible result and a day to remember for teenager Chris Riggs, 16 years old, and scoring the 5th in that game. Absolutely brilliant stuff. A big weekend in the Championship. Obviously, no game this weekend due to the international break, but it will be Southampton that Leicester play next on Friday the 15th, and we'll have all the coverage for you right here. Should we have another bit of Lurdle?
Yeah.
I think we should. Part 3, although I might even give you a little bit of a clue in a moment. Part 3 sounds like this.
As Perez picks it up by the corner flag after a fine long pass, and he exchanges balls with Ricardo. Now it's back with Gerry Tielemans, helps it on to Wilfred Ndidi. Ndidi's pass reaches Chilwell now. Chilwell on the left, crosses it in towards Perez. Oh! That is perfect from Ayoze Perez.
There we go. Oh, Tags thinks he's got it. Somebody on Facebook thinks they've got it, and this is where your clue comes in. Stuart thinks he's got it.
Don't need it.
But the clue is, Stuart, you need to be a little more specific. That's all I'm going to say. You need to be a little more specific. Oh, Ewan, I can't have you in this state of thinking.
Nah, I'm just on Tags.
Yeah, you've got a job to do, Ewan, because it's time that we go globetrotting. There we go.
Yeah, but as we know, last week was the draw for the Europa League, the Europa Conference League, and the Champions League. And one team that are in the competition for the first time, Union Berlin. And they've got a really tough group. They've got Sporting Braga, who Leicester know all about. They've got Napoli. Their first game in the competition is Real Madrid away. And I'll give you a little bit of background to Union Berlin. Back-to-back relegations in 2004, 2005. They won their first promotion to the Bundesliga in 2019. Finished 7th in their first season in that division, qualifying for the Europa Champions League. Finished 4th last season to qualify for the Champions League. And their fans actually helped them build the stadium. They spent more than 140,000 hours building their stadium. And my question was, if you're a Union Berlin fan or a player, would you rather have had an easier group to go further in the competition, or the group that they've got with two massive clubs in Madrid and Napoli, which probably will make it really tough for them to get out of the group stages.
Tags.
Well, as a defender, you don't really need to ask me that, do you? You keep Benzema on the one side and whoever else.
He's not there anymore, though, is he?
Well, you know what I mean.
But Jude Bellingham at the minute,
Jude
scoring
Bellingham,
for fun.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll take a weaker group.
Because if you look
further
at that Leicester group, where Leicester got to the quarter-final, Club Brugge, Porto, good side, Copenhagen,
yeah.
So, not a bad group, to be fair, was it? Not a bad group.
No.
So you see
you've
what
got to take you've got to take the glamour games, haven't you? Surely, as a fan, you've got to be looking forward to those games, and you just saw what you've read out and what they've achieved and everything, you know. And you finish in third place and get into you drop down into the Europa League, don't you? Anyway, so you know, I think they've just got to enjoy the games, haven't they? You know, Real Madrid. Are you playing Real Madrid? Wow, you know, that's just. You know, they've just spent £1 billion or something on their stadium, haven't they, Real Madrid? So, you know, and it was incredible when I went there about 7 or 8 years ago. So God knows what it's like now. But you know, if you don't enjoy going to the Bernabeu, you won't enjoy it ever going to any football game.
It's a bit similar to the situation Newcastle find themselves in, because they've got PSG, Milan, Dortmund in their group, and it's probably the same conversation. But you're not telling me that those Newcastle fans aren't absolutely buzzing with that trouble.
The fans will, but I'm looking from a defender. No, not a player, a defender perspective.
You don't fancy going against Mbappe?
Tags wants an easy night.
Maybe a bit later on, you know, in the tournament. You know what I mean? Let's ease our way into it. Get through the group stages, and then what will be will be.
But what a story for Union Berlin! What's the story from where they've been?
Incredible.
It is like a rags to riches sort of story.
If there was any team who you didn't play against, who you wish you had played against, who would it be?
I would have loved to have played AC Milan in the San Siro. When they had all the biggers, Kaká, Shevchenko.
Who would have been marking you?
Nesta
at the time.
Yeah, or
Maldini.
Who's the big Yapstam? I would have got a kick, wouldn't I? I'd have got a kick probably, but not the one I was looking for.
Yeah, not a goal.
You want to get a kick of the ball. What about you, TC? Is there a club, a team, as you say, a team from a certain time that you wish you had been able to have a game against?
Well, I can pretty much say any team in Europe, I think. I mean, my European expeditions, it consisted of my 15-minute appearance for Leicester against Atletico Madrid in the second leg. Back in '97, you know, because I missed out. Obviously, we had the 5-year ban back in the '80s. That didn't help me playing in Europe. And then I just had my real 15-minute taste with Leicester. So I would love to have played at Real Madrid or Barcelona. I think for me, I love the English Premier League and that, but there's just something mystical about those two Spanish giants and that, you know. They've had a little bit of ups and downs recently, as we know, like all clubs do. But I just think the size of the stadium, you know, their sort of place in world football now. I think if I could have been playing, I think I'd love to have played. That's why I said the draw for me, to get the chance to go and play at Real Madrid. What an honour that will be.
What about you, Tags? Who would you like to have gone up against?
I'm going to go along with you, because I used to love watching AC Milan, but from an earlier, when Baresi and Rudy Hullet and them boys and Van Basten were playing in the
Donadoni
in the late 80s, early 90s, and when I was at Barnsley, the coach at the time was a guy called Mick Wadsworth, and he used to bring the video recorder in every Monday morning of the AC Milan game and make us watch it, because we played with 3 centre halves at Barnsley, and he'd make us watch AC Milan every Monday morning on the old VHS cassette. But that's when, you know, when Channel 4 started airing
Football Italia on
a Sunday. So I used to watch that every Sunday, and I just loved the AC Milan team of that era. It was quality.
I love that. Just thinking that most Mondays surely was watching back your game.
I'm Baresi though, right? No, you can be Maldini. I want to be Baresi today on the training pitch.
I love that. How do you think, I guess, we haven't maybe seen as much of Union Berlin, so it'd be hard to predict, but how do you think Newcastle are going to get on in Europe in such a strong group?
The one thing I will question is, have they got the strength and depth to sort of cope with 4 competitions? Because this is completely new to them. I mean, they've not had the best start to the season. Yeah, they had that great win on the opening day at home to Aston Villa. I thought they were poor on Saturday night against Brighton. But what a good side Brighton look. But whenever they go, those Geordie fans will travel in their numbers, believe you me.
Yeah, because to be fair, clubs will actually probably be looking forward to be playing at St James's Park. On the reverse to that, won't they? It's going to be absolutely brilliant. Of course, loads of European action coming up in the next few months. Right, should we get our Lurdle answer? Because I think we're getting very, very close to people getting it. Yes, Stuart, I think, is on the money. Neil, I think, is quite close, but might not be close enough. Let's hear it in its entirety. Here is this week's Lurdle.
Indeed, he's pass reaches Chilwell now. Chilwell on the left, crosses it in towards Perez. Oh! That is perfect from Jose Perez. And this is a faultless first 40 minutes for Leicester. Check this for a scoreline. Southampton 0, Leicester City 4.
Now, if you're watching along...
Mad game, didn't I? And you know what? When you done the last clue, I thought that sounds like me, and I thought, no, they can't be stitching me up again like they normally do. And yeah, of course, the boys are stitching me up. It's the famous 9-0, isn't it?
Yes.
It certainly is. And actually, people watching along, you might have thought we were pointing at you, pointing at the cameras, but we were actually pointing at TC, looking at his confused look on his face.
little grin came under this.
He was up the
I did have a feeling, but I wasn't going to make a fool of myself. Unlike Tags, I don't pretend to have the answer every single week. I just sit there and don't say anything. But I remember the game very, very well. And the first ever commentary I've done for LCFC as well. What a game that was.
It certainly was. And actually, I got it the wrong way round. Stuart got it wrong. Neil got it right. It was Jose Perez's second of his hat-trick in that 9-0 win at Southampton, and what a night that was, absolutely. We're going to look at the Prediction League very shortly, but we always end today on Extra Time with a game of football Jenga, where we all have a go at answering a question, and I have the reveal of that question, and you might be sensing a little bit of a theme here, especially with that game against Southampton coming up next for Leicester. This week's question on Football Jenga is, name any player to have appeared in the matchday squads for Leicester City's record-breaking 9-0 victory over Southampton in October 2019. There are 36 players to name. There we go. Name any player to have appeared in the matchday squad for Leicester City's record-breaking 9-0 victory over Southampton in October 2019. There are 36 players to name. So while you start having a little think on that one, I'm going to have a little look at what the Prediction League is doing. Okay. As we mentioned, we thought it might be a tough one this week, and we will get to those very soon. So Birmingham against Millwall was the first game we asked people to predict. We've got Dan Bates' answer, we've got Ewan's, Matt's and Tony's. So that's Matt Elliott who was putting his prediction in for this. So Dan went 1-0, Ewan went for 2-1, 2-0 was Matt's prediction, and Tony went for 2-1. No points on the board for this one because it ended 1-1 between Birmingham and Millwall. So no additions to the table. This is the one that we knew that no one was going to get. Sunderland 5, Southampton 0. As we can see, draws predicted from Dan, Ewan and Matt. Tony went for a 2-1 Southampton away win. 0-0. Swansea against Bristol City. So Swansea 1, Bristol City 2. So we do have a point for Matt Elliott, who went for a 1-0 Bristol City away win. Dan and Ewan went for Swansea, and Tony went for Swansea 2. So Matt comes out with a point. And then the game that Ewan was at, Ipswich 3, Cardiff 2. A few more points to be dished out here, and it is one for each player. Dan went for the 2-0. Ewan very close with the 3-1, as was Tony, and Matt went 2-1. But the 3-2 win, 1 point apiece. Leeds against Sheffield Wednesday at Ellen Road. It finished 0-0 and no points. Everybody else going for a Leeds win on this game. This is a terrible, terrible week. Matt and Gerry are top of the table, 18 points. Tony in second, Iwan in third, and Batesy down the bottom with 10 points. But let's be honest, that was an absolute rascal week of fixtures. A very, very difficult one indeed. Okay. Oh, that wasn't great, was it? Hey, you're listening to Extra Time here, and you're watching on Fox's Hub, Facebook and YouTube. Always loads of content, including right now you can listen to a brand new podcast edition of Leicester's The Place with Gerry and Matt in conversation with Martin O'Neill. That must have been great catching up with Martin and Gerry.
Absolutely brilliant, yeah.
What was the best memory that came up? The one that really took you back to playing under him?
You'll just have to watch it and find out for yourselves. I'm not giving anything
The
away.
clip I've seen, he hammers Matt. And I was absolutely delighted.
Who Martin does, yeah.
He's so quick-witted.
Oh, yeah, unbelievable. So
there you go. The salesman is giving nothing more away.
Yeah.
Get on to Fox's Hub to have a little watch of the latest episode of Leicester's The Place. Right, shall we play this then? Football Jenga is the name of the game. Please do play along. And this week, we name any player to have appeared in the matchday squad for Leicester's record-breaking 9-0 victory over Southampton in October 2019. There are 36 players to name. Now, which order do you normally go?
Including Southampton?
Yeah.
In the matchday squads, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what order we
I'm not
normally
winning
go?
this today. I won last week, but I'm not winning this today.
How does this work, you? And who goes first usually?
Do you want to go first? And then we'll go clockwise. Is that
Go to
clockwise?
you. So we'll go me, Iwan, TC, Gerry. Okay. I'll kick us off then with Jose Perez.
Jamie Vardy.
Me next, yeah?
Yes, TC.
Casper Schmeichel.
Johnny Evans.
Ben Chilwell.
Yuri Tielemans.
James Maddison.
Mark Albrighton.
Ryan Bertrand.
Kelechi Iheanacho. Oh, no!
The big man's out.
He's gone.
The big man's out.
He's fuming.
I'm going to go for the Wilf in Didi.
Oh dear. Wes Morgan.
James Ward-Prowse.
Choice of two. I'm having a gamble here. I'm hoping that Vestergaard plays for Southampton.
What a beast. Absolute beast.
Hamza Chowdhury.
Papi Mendy. He's gone.
The tags, I wouldn't worry, I've only got one left on my bit of paper.
You should see the smile on his face,
I've
TC.
got two. But
And I don't even know, he might have been injured. I'm going to go, and we might already have said it, Ricardo.
that's one of my two.
We're in trouble then.
Yeah. Mahrez. Riyad Mahrez.
Is that
Have
TC
I
win?
got a name one though?
No, because I'm last in the
Yeah,
round.
he's last in the round.
Last
So
man standing.
Yeah, I'm last in the round, so no, you win it, TC. That was my last. Ricardo and Mahrez.
Damari Gray would he have?
Tamari Gray, yeah.
Yeah, good shout.
Angus Gunn in goal. Had a few of
Angus
theirs.
Gunn, yeah.
Walker Peters.
Yeah.
Romelu, is it?
I was trying to think who.
So it was Gunn in goal, then Bednarek, Yoshida,
Bednarek.
Vestergaard, Valerie Ward-Prowse, Romeo, Højbjerg, Bertrand, Danny Ings, Redmond for Southampton. For Leicester, who do we lose? We didn't have Chaglar Suinchu. Harvey Barnes also started. And then on the bench, Mark Albright and James Justin, Danny Ward, Dennis Pratt, and Southampton, Jack Stevens, Stuart Armstrong, Kevin Danso, Alex McCarthy, Shane Long, Che Adams, and Sufyan Boufal. Quite a lot there. I think we've had a bit of a shocker.
Yeah.
You certainly have, you.
I'm disgusted.
You should be.
Who did I say? Ian Atchell?
Yeah.
That's just unlucky if he's out injured. Because he'd be on the bench or...
Yeah, but you got to know your squads,
mate. Yeah,
but... Tony, take us back to that night. What was it like to be there at St Mary's? Because we were watching here in the studio and we were absolutely just kind of, what is going on? It must have been a bit surreal to be there.
Well, it was, because who got sent off?
Bertrand, yeah.
Yeah, he got sent off and that, but there was no fault. I just remember getting to half time. It was 5, I think it was 5 at half time, wasn't it? And I've seen it so many times before in football where you get 5 up and you sort of play out the second half, and then you got the opposition manager saying, well, try and win the second half, and then they sort of nick a goal and you win 5-1 or something like that, or 6-1 even. But I didn't expect Leicester to be as clinical as they were. And the other thing that was always going through my mind, once it sort of went to 7, and there was still a little bit of time, I don't know whether you got the timings of the goals in front of you, Lewis, I haven't got that information, but once it went to 7, I knew for a fact that the record Premier League victory was the 9-0 that Man United had beaten Ipswich back in the 90s. So, the double figures, and once it went 8, and then, of course, when it went to 9, you're thinking, wow, surely you can get one more, boys, and just... it was a historic night anyway, but, just for an away performance, you just don't get results like that. Throughout the history of football, you do not get 9-0 away victories. It can happen. You can have a nightmare. Well, with Liverpool Man U last year, it was 7-0, wasn't it? But that was, that was the home team winning that. So for Southampton, to just capitulate and concede the goals and it wasn't lucky either. I remember that as well. There was some incredible football play. I think it was pouring down a rain, if my memory serves me right. It was just a special night, and those Leicester fans are just I came out of the ground at the end of the night thinking, what happened there? And as I said, it was my first commentary as well for Leicester. So I think they were very keen to get me back on after that, just to do a good on the basis. But obviously you can't win 9-0 every week. But it was a fantastic memory, a really, really great game and a privilege to have been there. And it was one of those games, you very rarely get it as a player, as a fan or as a pundit, but it was one of those games where you can say, I was there, even though obviously I didn't get it on the Lurdle. I was there.
In his last 2 games, or league games at St Mary's, Angus Gunn has conceded 13 goals, bless him. Because he didn't play in the league game for Southampton after he conceded 9 against Leicester. The first time he's been back there is the other week when Norwich went down. He conceded 4, although Norwich did score 4, to be fair.
Yeah.
What a stat that is. You were talking about the timings of the goals. It was actually 58 minutes that Leicester were 7-0 up.
Wow.
So very much.
And that's what I mean. I was fully aware of that 9-0.
I think it was Johnny Evans when the 8th goal went in. I don't know if it was a penalty, the 8th goal.
No, the penalty was the 9.
Oh, 9. Yeah. Well, no, it
must have been. Scored, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the 8th goal or something like that. And Johnny Evans runs down the pitch and said, get the ball, because we're on for it. We're on for the record.
That's a mentality for you.
Yeah, and two hat-tricks as well, Lewis, wasn't it? The 2 hat-tricks for Leicester?
Yeah, Perez and Vardy that night.
Yeah, which is unusual in itself. You don't normally get that.
No, not at all. It was absolutely a special night. And, of course, it will be the next time that Leicester are in action. A different game, a different division, of course. Same place, St Mary's. What are you thinking about that game? It feels like a big game already in the season.
I mean, we've spoken about the problems that Leicester have had in front of goal. Southampton's got the worst defensive record in the league. We've spoken about them going up to Sunderland and conceding 5. They've conceded 12 in their first 5 games of the season. I know Russell Martin wants his teams to play. I think they'll give you opportunities. But if you look at the games in this month, okay, Hull's gone, forget about that. Next 2 games, 2 tough away games, Southampton and then Norwich City, who are 6th, I think, and then Bristol City have had a decent start,
Yeah.
0-8. So it's a tough month, albeit there's only 3 games left of it because of the international break.
Yeah, you feel it'll be quite a good little break for Leicester to kind of come together, think about what's happened so far, and obviously any more time Enzo Maresca gets to put those points across it, he'll definitely take.
Yeah, I think, Enzo sort of said himself it was a good time to have the break and refresh and regroup and think about what they've done in this month, in the month of August, the games that they've played, the results, even the loss against Hull. They'll all learn from that. I don't know how many players are away on international duty. I would imagine it's quite a few.
Danny Ward will play for Wales, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, but as I say, Ewan's hit the nail on the head. I think after about 10 games in the Championship, you sort of get an idea of where you're at, really. Do you know what I mean? Or what you need to improve on to get to where you think you should be. Because, as Ewan says, some teams just come up from nowhere, from left field, and just, they can do some damage. So Leicester just have to be ready for these next group of games.
Well, gents, we've come to the end of this week's Extra Time. Thank you so much, Ewan. Thanks, Tags. Thanks, Tony. It's been brilliant. And thank you, of course, for watching once again. Always an absolute pleasure to be with you. Enjoy the international break. And, of course, we'll be back. And you can always catch up with loads of Leicester City content on the Foxes Hub.